will start by saying that there is something that strikes me if I look at the list of participants in a discussion on South Atlantic and wider Atlantic area, that there is no Brazilian. I didn't organize this discussion. I don't know the reasons why there are no Brazilians here in the list of participants. But I worked, especially the last 3 years, very intensively on Brazil and on the transatlantic relations at the European Commission. I organized some meetings like these, and I know how difficult it is to get Brazilians to come to these meetings. Now, I'm from Portugal, I'm Portuguese. I don't pretend to speak on behalf of the Brazilians, you know, I'm sure they wouldn't like me to do that. But I did some work on Brazil during the last couple of years. I had many discussions with Brazilians. I helped to prepare some summits with Brazil. And I can tell you two things. First, I don't think we'll have a very ambitious, wider Atlantic agenda if we don't convince Brazil to be part of it. And secondly, I'm very sure that it will be very difficult to convince the Brazilians to be part of it. I think we can convince the Brazilians, but it won't be easy. This is what my experience tells me of working with Brazilians during the last 3 years, especially. And if you look at Brazil, they look at foreign policy. Let me just tell you some 3 or 4 basic ideas that explain the way Brazil looks at global politics today. First, they very much welcome the multipolar world. They love the world of rising BRICS. They love to be a rising power. And they see themselves as being a rising power against, like all rising powers, declining powers. And it happens that those declining powers for Brazilians are Europeans and North Americans. So they are in a different position, structural position. So they see somehow the rising powers competing for a place in the sun against the traditional dominant powers that happens to be Northern Atlantic countries and powers. Secondly, they want to keep in their foreign policy as much autonomy as they can. They want to have good relations with everybody. You know, in a striking similarity to the United States and to France, Brazil sees themselves as an exceptional country with an exceptional history, with an exceptional destiny, and with an exceptional role to play in the world. It's quite amazing if you go to Brazil the way you perceive and you understand this. So they don't want to have special relations with anybody, and they want to have good relations with everybody, to keep as much autonomy as they can in their foreign policy. Thirdly, now, at this moment, they see the biggest economic opportunities coming from Asia, not from the Atlantic area. They see some economic opportunities in Africa, but especially they know that their economic growth is linked to the economic growth of China and India above all. And that's the opportunities they want to take. And fourthly, actually, and this is very interesting to hear the Mexican ambassador to the United Nations, Brazil has almost an opposite position to Mexico. Brazil wants to rebalance the North and the South Atlantic, but does not want to really work to further integration between the North and the South Atlantic. Brazil is actually quite happy with certain division and distinction between the South and the North Atlantic, because Brazil see themselves as the dominant Southern Atlantic power, both in South America and in Africa, and they want to keep it as it is. I remember once I was in Brazil and we were in a seminar like this, we were discussing European-Brazilian cooperation in Africa. And the former diplomat from Brazil told me very frankly, why should we want to go with Europeans to Africa? Nobody likes you in Africa and everybody likes us. Of course, the Brazilians are open to this kind of fantasies sometimes, but that's the way they think. That's the way many people in Brazil think today, and I think we'll need lots of work and persuasion. I think we can do it, but we'll need really lots of work, lots of persuasion and time to convince Brazilians that they can really benefit from further integration in the Atlantic, from further cooperation with both Europe and North America, and especially this may happen if one day they will be obliged to take positions and to make choices. Let me just finalize with this. It's a bit simplistic, but a comparison. Brazil will be to this wider Atlantic agenda what France has been to the transatlantic relationship in the last 4 or 5 decades. The goalist country in the wider Atlantic that we cannot live without them, and we'll have to work hard to convince them of the merits of this.
Passons